what's happening around the world and what's happening here at home. A very good evening to and welcome to Primetime News. I'm Sandro Ferdinando. Let's take a look at your headlines for tonight.
RDA workers go on token strike. Military deployed to operate expressways. Presidential and parliamentary elections next year, assures the president.
කොහොමද කියන්නේ බය කියලා ඡන්දකට අපි වන් ඡන්දේ පවත්වනවා ජනාධිපති ඡන්දයයි පාර්ලිමේන්තු ඡන්දයයි දෙකම පවත්වන
Ranil, Sajit clash in parliament over the court ruling on those who led the country to bankruptcy.
ඒ කියන්නේ අපි ඔක්කොමද පබ්ලික් ට්‍රස්ට් තියෙනවා දැන් මෙතන කියලා තියෙන්නේ සම්ප්‍රදාය අනුව විපක්ෂ නායකතුමාට එන්න කිව්වා ඉතින් අපේ විපක්ෂ නායකතුමාගේ ඒක කරේ නෑ පැනලා ගියා so that's also breach of public trust. That is also breach of public trust.
Public trust together. Mahinda hora apita epa, Mahinda hora apita epa, Mahinda hora apita epa. Obutuma ජනාධිපති අගමැති හැටියට. අනේ ඔබතුමා ඇයි එහෙම විවේචනය කරලා ඇයි දැන් මේගොල්ලෝව රැකගන්න කටයුතු කරන්නේ?
Will Sri Lanka's energy sovereignty be at risk via the proposed electricity sector reform bill? Shammi Silva comments on the letters sent to the ICC.
In a top story this evening, the Tri-Forces had to be deployed for expressway ticketing operations due to the token strike launched by the Joint Trade Union Collective of the Road Development Authority.
11,000 members of 26 trade unions took part in this strike in order to protest against the plans to privatize the expressway network. The trade unions are also protesting against the current recruitment procedure and not receiving the allowance for sick leave. Expressway ticketing operations were gravely impacted by the strikes as the strike was held from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. today. The Tri-Forces were deployed to manage the ticketing operations. Newsfirst correspondent stated that expressway tickets were not issued in few areas as the required equipment was stored away by the employees. Handwritten tickets were issued in a few areas. Tickets were issued with the intervention of the Sri Lanka Army at the Pinnadu entrance of the Southern Expressway. Sri Lanka Navy personnel were deployed to issue tickets at the Central Expressway. The Sri Lanka Army issued tickets at the Kasagal entrance of the Southern Expressway. The officers on duty at the Kottava Expressway entrance also took part in the strike, and Sri Lanka Army was deployed to provide services to those using the expressway. The Army commander was also present to supervise the ticketing operations at the Kottava Expressway entrance.
The Ministry of Transport and Highways of Sri Lanka elaborated about the strike in Parliament.
They took over all the equipment, machinery and public property when they stepped away from work. That is why I asked them, on behalf of all the citizens in this country, to return all the government property and to help the military when required. The people also need to be protected. If an accident occurs because they are no longer working, we cannot take responsibility for it. We have planned with the police regarding the threats they make. We are also working to deploy the police and other military units to introduce a ticketing system without these equipments. The people who work on these highways fear that it will be sold. They fear that they will lose their jobs because of this. I want to make something clear. Those in the RDA will not lose their jobs. That is an assurance and I can't help it if you don't want to believe it.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe has announced that presidential and parliamentary elections will take place next year.
The Rajapaksas will take care of themselves. The former president is a lawyer and he will look into his affairs. They are familiar with legal cases. But today, we have an established democracy in the country. How can you say that we are afraid of an election? The presidential and parliamentary elections will take place next year. they will not be delayed. Thereafter, in the following year, the provincial council election and the local government election will be held.
Meanwhile, the President replied to the question raised by the opposition leader yesterday on the Supreme Court's ruling on Sri Lanka's bankruptcy, which cited that fundamental rights were violated through economic decisions made between 2019 to 2022. Now, while the opposition leader had raised these questions with regard to two fundamental rights petitions, the President began his response by pointing out that the number of one of the two fundamental rights petitions was incorrect. Let's now take a look at the speech delivered by the President and the opposition leader's response to it.
විපක්ෂ නායකතුමා මට අපිට දීලා තිබුණ ප්‍රශ්නයක් මේ නඩුව තියෙන්නේ 2023 2027 වසර තුල තිරුකුණාමලේ
The opposition leader had raised a question. This case is regarding the tender of supplying bread and dry rations to the Trincomalee prison for the years 2003 to 2024. It says that by awarding the tender to ABC Enterprises, the petitioner's human rights have been violated and that compensation should be paid. If I am given an explanation in this regard, I could talk to the Attorney General to decide the next step. I will explain this further. There is another part to this. This incident is about a violation of fundamental rights, and evidence sufficient for a criminal court case is not required here. There is a separate set of laws to be executed in this situation. I expect an explanation. We all have public trust. We need to find out what exactly happened here, how the former president had not done anything in this regard, and what happened afterwards. We need a proper investigation to find out who else is involved. Were they members of the cabinet? Is GLP is one of them? What happened after he resigned? The president acted as he should and invited the opposition leader, but the opposition leader shied away. That is also a breach of public trust. Later, I took over. I requested everyone's support to save our country. I need your support. Let's all investigate this matter. Since cricket was mentioned, I'll also say what I have to say. There were accusations against me as well. I was telling the minister the other day that the court case should not go on like this and that it would result in the loss of the ICC, matches and tourists. I told him that if we get entangled in a court case, we would not be able to get out of it. Even the Attorney General was there with us that day. The former president was also there. We told the Attorney General to do the needful. What happened here was when they went that day, it was 10:30. The court hearing had ended by then. We need to find out what happened here. I'm going to ask for a report from the minister. I spoke to Jay Shah as well. I also sent messages to the ICC. The ICC says that we brought politics into cricket and got politically involved in the sport. I don't have any intention of protecting Shammi Silva. There are allegations against them. That is why I'm stressing that there needs to be a new sports law. There are two allegations against us. One is the dissolution of the cricket board by the council. I said that we should wait for the court ruling to find out if what the minister did was legal or not. The second allegation is that the parliament was involved. How do we solve this issue? Once the minister made this statement, the opposition stood up and reacted a certain way. Then how can we say that there is no politics involved? The House needs to accept its fault. We scolded the judges. Why did we scold them? Because the same judge was involved in the Diana Gamage case. I did not pick the judge. There are no privileges here. We can criticize court rulings here, but not the judges. Also, who is Rakaba? We all worked together for the UNP in the 70s. In that picture, I am in the center. That is no secret. When Justice Bandula Karunaratne took oaths as the President of the Court of Appeal, I also invited him to join us. The Constitutional Council is not part of the Parliament. It is a part of the executive to propose names to the President or support when giving appointments. Therefore, court cases on fundamental rights violations can be filed no matter what is done. I am waiting for the list of names from the Commissioner. We are talking about corruption but can't get the list of names of the Commission members. Why is this happening? If you're against corruption, we could have appointed them immediately. The Chief Justice sent me several names and so did the Attorney General. They cannot be approved yet. The Constitutional Council cannot go on like this. So let's appoint a selection committee and discuss how to go forward from here. No, the entire judiciary is involved in this case. This House is there to pass new laws. The public doesn't pay us for us to put up an act. We are supposed to pass laws. I suggest that I talk to the cabinet and bring a new amendment for the passing of the new laws. We need to move on to the main item on the agenda after the first hour.
ප්‍රධාන වැඩ කටයුත්තට යන්න.
අපිට ඉතාමත්ම වැදගත් වන්නේ මහපාරේ පොදු ජනතාවගේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී මතය. එහෙම නැතුව 2019 ජනාධිපති වරමක් අරගෙන 2020 මහමැතිවරණ
What is extremely important to us is the general public's democratic opinion. You yourself know that you did not have any public mandate in 2020, although you did in 2019. You got a parliamentary seat thanks to the national list. Therefore, what is important is the general public's opinion. You took so much advantage from the fact that the petition number of one of those cited was incorrect. There needs to be accountability here. Your supporters did not let me complete my question yesterday. I was speaking about the Supreme Court ruling on Sri Lanka's bankruptcy, which cited that fundamental rights were violated through economic decisions. I do not know if you are illiterate, but the names are mentioned clearly. I am disappointed that the president is talking like this. How many times have you yourself criticized the decisions made by Mahinda Rajapaksa, Basil Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa? Why are you now trying to protect them? After chanting slogans against them back then, how are you now able to cut a birthday cake with them and sing happy birthday? How can you govern the country with no public mandate? You cannot point your finger at us and say that we shied away from responsibilities when you did not even respect the general public and proceeded to take decisions as per your own wishes. We are ready to take the responsibility, hold elections, give us a provincial council election, give the 22 million of this country the chance to exercise their mandate. We are ready to take the responsibility. As for cricket, I don't know who gave all this unreliable information to the president. When Minister Roshan Ranasinghe mentioned that picture, I asked who was in the centre. I'll show you the picture now. That's Shammi Silva, the chairman of SLC. The president is talking about some other picture. Everyone is trying to confuse you right now. I understand your struggle. The solution for ending this unfortunate situation is holding an election as soon as possible. Do not fall for the false and unreliable information you are being fed. Do not lose the credibility. Listen to the sports minister who is under you. What happened all this time is you lost the opportunity to do something good for the country many times because you listened to a few people you had surrounded yourself with. Take advice not only from Roshan Ranasinghe but also from the Minister of Justice. We carried out a historic proposal in this house. Do not insult it. Please speak to the ICC. I must also ask how Shammi Silva can send letters to the ICC and request that the SLC be suspended. I have tabled the letters of November 6th, 7th and 9th. I request that the Secretary gives the President these letters. He probably does not know about them. You also mentioned the name Rakava. But the issue here is the opposition did not make a single mention of that name. Check the Hansard. They are feeding you lies. Be cautious. It might even be the SLPP. You mentioned the Constitutional Council. Do you remember a parliamentary council being introduced by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa? I don't remember if it was in the chamber or not, but you yourself said that it was a rubber stamping body. Now, the Constitutional Council has been empowered through the latest amendment. The Constitutional Council exists to conduct the necessary checks and balances on the executive and to prevent the President from making any arbitrary decisions.
කවුද මේ ඔබතුමාට මේ දිරච්ච නඩු දෙන්නේ බලාගෙන පොහොට්ටුවෙන්ම දෙනවද දන්නේ නැහැ ඔබතුමා සඳහන් කරා කොන්ස්ටිටියුෂනල් කවුන්සිල් එක ගැන මතකද ඔබතුමා ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිවරයා ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධනයක් තුල පාර්ලිමේන්ටරි කවුන්සිල් එකක් ගෙනාවා ඔබතුමාම මට මතක නැහැ මේක ඇතුලේ කිව්වද කියලා එළියේ කිව්වා it's a rubber stamping body කියලා පාර්ලිමේන්ටරි කවුන්සිල් එක දැන් ඒක නව ව්‍යවස්ථා සංශෝධනයෙන් පස්සේ ව්‍යවස්ථාදායක සභාවට ලැබිලා තියෙන බලය විධායකයේ check and balance කරන්න තමයි කොන්ස්ටිටියුෂනල් කවුන්සිල් එකක් තියෙන්නේ ඍජුවම ජනාධිපතිවරයාට Tamanට ඕනෝන විදියට හිතුමතයට පත්වීම කරන්නට නේ
Send me those 3 letters, then I will follow it up. You said there were 3 letters, no?
Yes.
So you tabled, send those to me, I'll follow up on that.
Honorable President, all these 3 letters
So send it
are
to me.
public knowledge, yes.
Yeah, so send it to me.
Yeah, even the Vijay News Group knows about these letters.
I know that.
Vijay News Group එකක් දන්නවා මේ
But I don't
letters
read
ගැන.
them.
Don't leave. Listen to my speech and leave. Don't try to escape. At least all of you should stay back. Are you tired of hearing these or can't you bear what is being said? I wish to make one thing clear. The Constitutional Council is not a rubber stamp body. It does not exist to approve everything that the President directs at it. Do you believe it is staged? When we talk about those who destroyed the country and bankrupt it, 22 million are starving. After wreaking havoc in this country, the executive is now trying to meddle with the Constitutional Council. Honourable Speaker, what are these humorous statements? Can the executive walk into Parliament and speak in that manner? Even you kept quiet. I know 134 of them are already the president's slaves, but you should not become one.
The Sri Lankan government is preparing to introduce a new legislation that would establish independent corporate entities responsible for activities related to electricity generation, transmission, distribution, trade, supply and procurement already performed by the Ceylon Electricity Board. The draft bill received the green light from the Cabinet recently and it will be presented to Parliament in the near future.
The Electricity Sector Reforms Bill was presented to the Cabinet earlier this week and it was decided that the new bill will be gazetted and presented in Parliament for approval.
The Cabinet granted approval to implement a plan to restructure the CEB. We need the private sector support for it. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposed Electricity Sector Reforms Bill and it will be presented in Parliament for approval.
What does the new Electricity Sector Reforms Bill aim to introduce? The bill aims to establish independent corporate entities responsible for activities related to electricity generation, transmission, distribution, trade, supply and procurement already performed by the Ceylon Electricity Board. Entities will be set up in a manner in which they can be registered under the Companies Act. This move is to be done with the aim of attracting new investments and creating market competition. It also proposes for the establishment of a National Electricity Advisory Council, while the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka will serve as the regulator of the electricity sector. The bill also proposes for the implementation of timely, legal, structural, oversight and market-based changes to ensure the financial self-sufficiency of the corporate entities. This includes the adoption of cost-reflective and transparent tariff system, improved financial and resource management and enhanced accountability and oversight measures. It also proposes the promotion of private sector investment in the electricity industry through stock market listing, the public-private partnership modalities. It also places emphasis on the government's commitment to decarbonisation goals, climate change policies and the use of renewable energy sources. The Frontline Socialist Party, speaking to reporters, made multiple exposés on the proposed Electricity Sector Reforms Bill.
Their plan is to introduce the Power Sector Regulatory Act soon so that they can do away with the Ceylon Electricity Board. Thereafter, in another 2 years, they will merge the two acts to bring another new act. By 2025, the CEB and the electricity sector will have no interference and the tariff will be used for corporate entities to generate profits. According to the objects of this act, it is to facilitate the establishment of independent and accountable corporate entities. It also wants to promote competition in relation to the generation. However, that means awarding it to these entities the generation, transmission, distribution, trade supply and procurement of electricity. In other words, it means that tenders will be called for these sectors and they will be given to the private companies. Further, they will be introducing two new structures. One is the National Electricity Advisory Council and it will have 5 members, all appointed by the Ministry of Power and Energy. In addition, the Minister shall, after informing the Cabinet of Ministers in writing the reasons, remove any member of the Council. It is this Council that will be vested with the power to prepare the rules and laws. Section 9 of the bill says that a national system operator will also be established. Who is this national system operator? It is a state-owned entity that will be preparing the long-term and short-term plans for the country's electricity grid. However, later it can be listed in the stock market. In addition, Section 13 proposes for the establishment of the National Transmission Network Service Provider. It is an entity that the government of Sri Lanka holds more than 50% of shares. It will be responsible for the maintenance of the national transmission network.
Views were also expressed on the impact the passage of this bill would have on the electricity tariff.
Section 26 of the bill is on tariff. Section 26(3)(a) says the tariff will include costs payable to generators supplying electricity. Thereafter, it also says that the tariff will include the capital expenditure for the electricity generation plan. It also includes the aggregate revenue requirement to be recovered by transmission and distribution licenses. It will also include the transmission tariff. Thereafter, the debt is added to the treasury and that too will be added to the tariff. The CEB made profits to the tune of 20,000 million in October. It was done in order to show that the CEB is profitable and to sell it off to the companies.
Economic analyst Dhananath Fernando, speaking on the Pathikada program, pointed out that the CEB's debt to state banks is also added onto the people by the budget in order to release the CEB from this burden.
The accumulated debt burden of the CEB and the CPC over the years is 1.8 trillion rupees. A lion's share of the debt is owed to the two state banks. When these banks announced a debt haircut, the capital of these banks will be insufficient for them to continue to operate. Therefore, someone has to funnel this money, and that is why a portion of that burden, to the tune of 450 billion rupees, was placed on the people, be it domestic or external debt. It ultimately falls on the laurels of the people. Sri Lankan Airlines, CEB and CPC are loss-making entities. The banks that provided loans to them are in crisis. In order to stabilize the banking sector, the budget proposes to provide 450 billion rupees. It proposes to divest 20% stake in the two largest state banks in the country. If not, they propose to restructure that 1.8 trillion rupees.
Who will be coming forward to invest in Sri Lanka's electricity sector after introducing such changes in haste? The Ceylon Electricity Employees Union made a revelation on this matter.
The distribution arm will be divided into 6 to 7 agencies. They will establish companies named R1, R2, R3 and R4. However, they have not revealed R5, which is LECO. Tata will get 4 systems and LECO will get 1. The transmission system will be given to Adani and the agreement is to be signed on the 26th. Ranil Wickremesinghe is now looking for money to fund the next presidential election. Therefore, these projects will be given to Adani. This is an Elara-type Indian invasion of Sri Lanka based on the country's energy sector. We have made an international level inquiry and it is clear that India is operating in a manner of taking control of countries in the region via their energy sectors. They will install solar power plants and will lay cables to India. They have planned to lay cables from Madras to Trincomalee over our LNG and fuel deposits.
Cable hara dan tel LNG kina nidhi udin danne.
Energy is a factor that determines the sovereignty of a country. Do you recall the situation of the people when the country was in short supply of fuel and electricity in the recent past? What will happen if this sector is entirely in the hands of independent foreign parties? There is one thing that must not be forgotten. A lion's share of the electricity supply in our country depends on the Chinese-built coal plant in Norachole. India's Adani company has received approval for a wind power project, and in the future, they will also contribute to a significant part of the country's energy supply. At the same time, hydropower plants produce electricity at the lowest cost. What will happen when these power plants are given to other countries or companies that represent those countries? Do you remember the agreement that the previous government suddenly signed in the middle of the night with a company called Newsfirst in America? The agreement proposes to provide power plants as well as LNG supply. Eventually, no such company set up shop in the country, and what happened to that agreement is a mystery. If such a situation is not to be repeated, is it not the responsibility of the leaders of the country to protect the nation from foreign meddling by ensuring that we do not fall prey to geopolitical traps in a bid to protect the energy sector sovereignty that we achieved with independence in 1948? We don't care about China, India or any other country in our reporting. We care about the people of this country and their future.
The Chinese strategy used in Sri Lanka was widely discussed at a forum organized by the Royal Asiatic Society of Sri Lanka. The session, titled "The Unsinkable Aircraft Carrier of Sri Lanka," was attended by Professor of Transatlantic Relations Patrick Mendes.
Professor Patrick Mendes is a professor of transatlantic relations, Warsaw University, Poland, and former US diplomat, US State Department. He spoke on the future of Sri Lanka's trilemma and commercial intercourse with China.
There's another artificial island is being built over here. It is called the Colombo Port City. How many acres are there? Hectares? Look at the add all together. It's a Taoist hidden meaning to it. It's come to 8, number 8. There are numerous hidden meaning to this one, the design of the port city. So why is it that important? Because they are calculated. This is the way how China calculates. They don't want to have a war. They want to win a war without a war. So in that strategy, Sri Lanka is critically important. Remember, Admiral Sheng Ho came here. He came to the Western Ocean, not to the Indian Ocean. That makes India nervous because they have no clue how the Chinese thinks about the world. They think Indian way, just like Sri Lanka think the world Sri Lankan way. We have all the solution to the world problem, not to at home. This is not problem. This is a problem with Americans. America thinks the entire world is like American. No, if you want to understand something, think about how they think. China does that exactly that. They think like a Sri Lankan. That is why you have a lotus tower. So then this is a strategy here. That's the third strategy is put on the China restless stage continuously. Putting the pressure on from the south, from Sri Lanka, because we have the tallest telecommunication center here in the South Asia, and they can monitor communication networks, they said, of the peaceful purposes, but now there are research ships coming in, the survey the topography of the sea level, okay, with your Nara and the Rona University and so forth and so forth. China doesn't want to confront you, that's not their culture. They want to win the war without fighting one. One exemption to Sri Lanka, that's the three powers are here in three different ways, both economic and military and cyberspace and also the telecommunications. Everywhere, Americans, Chinese and Indians are here. Why Sri Lanka? Sri Lanka is a civilizational state. It has a long history, recorded history, both in the Mahavans and Cholavans and onward in the Dathavans king and forward and the backward. Sri Lanka has everything we need to have, unlike Singapore, for example. They don't have anything. If they don't have a Malaysian water, entire Singapore cut down. No vegetables going there, no, nothing there. But we do have everything. So Chinese thing, remember, they wanted to make Colombo port the best financial and commercial center and investment center, not Singapore, not Dubai, here. They have everything. The comparative advantage is here than Singapore or the Dubai. What we need is the well-developed human resources. This is the treasure that Chinese came to learn from us.
Chairman of Sri Lanka Cricket, Shami Silva, who attended the ICC board meeting, addressed the media in Colombo.
From Sri Lanka and also at the ICC meeting.
Political interference was widely discussed at the ICC meeting. The members said that 3 sports have been suspended in the country. The ICC said that earlier they took a similar decision on Zimbabwe and made this decision to prevent it from happening in other countries as well. They said that a country that was suspended cannot host world tournaments. They also wanted to cease funding, and I pleaded not to, and to have a controlling fund. I asked them to allow us to play cricket. If not, we will fall, because cricket is like religion. They agreed to it. The ICC decided to move the Under-19 World Cup to South Africa, but it is a loss to the country.
Under-19 South Africa
Shami Silva also commented on the letters sent by SLC to the ICC.
3 letters sent by us were shown, and none of them claim that we want it suspended. I do not know who translated it for them. We are bound to the ICC. They said a major part of the political interference is from Parliament. They said they understood the complete level of political interference here. They are the ones who decided on this.
ICC Sri Lanka cricket ticket ලැබෙන මුදල් පාලනය කිරීමක් කළේ. එතකොට මේ ජාතික කණ්ඩායමේ ක්‍රීඩකයන්ගේ කොන්ත්‍රාත් මුදල් වල මොනවා හරි සංශෝධනයක් හරි මොනවා හරි සිද්ධ වෙනවද?
කිසිම සංශෝධනයක් කරන්නේ.
There will be no changes. We will continue to spend on cricket. We will pay the employees like we did before. We will not depend on others. Let's see what happens. We will be sending everything to the ICC. They will be made aware of our expenditure.
මොනවාට සල්ලි වියදම් කරන්න කියලා.
Politics means people. News means freedom. Unleashing the power of human awareness. Breaking the shackles of ignorance. 8 to 8:30, face to face.
This is not what we need to do. We should do better. We should do different.
8:30 to 9, the People's Platform.
US is Sri Lanka's #1 export market as well.
9 to 9:30, Primetime English News.
A very good evening and welcome to this Wednesday's edition of Primetime News on Newsfirst.
Your weekday evenings just got interesting. TV1.
Minister of Foreign Affairs, President Council Ali Sabri, speaking to reporters, commented on the second tranche of the IMF-supported program for Sri Lanka.
We have to engage in two important matters with regard to the second tranche. First is the staff level agreement, and we have achieved it. Next is the assessment from the creditors on debt management. The Exim Bank of China has already given it to us. That is a win. The details were shared with India and the Paris Club. Thereafter, we will be able to secure the second tranche.
The minister also commented on debt servicing and debt reworking.
The debt sustainability analysis of the IMF had taken that into consideration. So if our revenues come the way we have predicted, and when we postpone the payments, mostly it's going to be, when it comes to bilateral, it's probably repurposing of those things. So by the time you really start the paying the larger chunks, our economy should have or would have recovered sufficiently to have that amount of money. So the currently immediate challenge is for us to meet the high interest payments, which was a necessity during the last year's high interest rate regime borrowings to the government. So those are the challenges for the time being. But if the debt sustainability analysis is taken into consideration, all these things have been factored into this. That's what it's a debt sustainability. What they are saying is that those parameters over a period of time from the debt from 129% of the GDP now to brought it down to the 95%. So apart from that, how many percent of the GDP per year for external debt payment? How many percent of it for internal debt payment? So all those that taken into consideration and factored and prepared the debt sustainability. So everything works according to plan, like nothing to panic. If we don't play into gallery, despite the elections coming in, responsibly do this for the next 5 years, we can emerge stronger than what we were before. But if we abandon this, I'm worried it could be an even bigger disaster. Despite the differences of opinion across the board in political divide, they will all act with responsibility.
The composition of the Constitutional Council was discussed in Parliament today.
No, the three institutions are check and balance on each other. The point that the President made was that the Constitutional Council was part of the executive. He said that. That is wrong. It may appear in that chapter, but the Constitutional Council can never be part of the executive.
That is your interpretation.
No, not my interpretation. Not my interpretation.
That is what I am pointing out.
The Speaker is the chair of the Constitutional Council. It can never be part of the executive.
No.
Right? If the Speaker is chair of the Constitutional Council, it is part of the legislative structure. It is not part of the executive. So being a part of the legislative structure, that is a check and balance on the executive.
Check and balance of the executive is done by the Parliament. Not the particular council.
What I said was the Constitutional Council was set up but to act as a check and balance on the actions of the executive. Previously, the President had total and full power to appoint the judges. Now that power is checked and balanced by the Constitutional Council. He doesn't have the unimpeded power and authority to do singular appointment.
Check and balance of executive is the duty of the Parliament. And still, who is the appointing authority of the judges? Who is the appointing authority of the commission members of the commission? Still the President.
There is a vacancy in the Constitutional Council. All 10 members have not been appointed. This is a very serious issue because we were entitled to nominate a member. And such a meeting was held. We have raised this many a time. The Leader of the Opposition has raised it in Parliament at Party Leaders meeting, and the Honourable Speaker has clearly said that it is our right. In fact, others who are claiming to have a right to nominate are all members of the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. The President says from the time he took over that he will resolve the Tamil national question. But he is unable to, or even this House is unable to resolve this one issue. You keep us out of the Constitutional Council. And then you talk about resolving the Tamil national question in a just manner. How can you do that? The country must know that while you wax eloquent, saying all are equal, everyone in the country will have representation, to a body like the Constitutional Council, which is a very important body, you still deprived us of a place. How can you face anyone and claim that this is governance in the right way? Violation of public trust is a very, very serious matter. The reply His Excellency gave today amounts to nothing. If you have violated public trust, and that's a pronouncement of the highest court in the country, those persons who have been named have no moral right to sit in this house anymore. In another place where they value democracy, who are found to have violated the public trust, would have resigned the next day.
The Gum at the Door-to-Door campaign, which surged ahead despite the unfavourable weather, continued for the 16th day today. 3 Gum at the Door-to-Door teams visited the people of villages in the Ampara, Badulla and Kegol districts today, and these people, who have been battered by economic hardships and false political promises, shared their sorrows with us.
මිනිස්සු රැවටුනේ. දැන් මිනිස්සු රැවටෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඉස්සර මිනිස්සු නෑ කැපුව පොළ කැපුව රතු කැපුව නිල් කියන්නේ අපි දැන් එහෙම නෑ. මේ ඉන්න දැන් සමාජේ කවදාවත් ඔය එහෙම දෙන්නම් කාසියට රැවටෙන මිනිස්සු නෑ.
She spoke to the Gum at the team in Godigamuwa, Kegol. When it rains, these children can't go to school and miss out on their education. The road to Ran Ketugama in Mavanella is also in a dilapidated state. The lifeblood of all the residents in this village is rubber harvesting, and during the monsoon season they are unable to make a living. This is the road that leads to Ruhunudanawa in Siambalandua. Any significant amount of rainfall causes the road to disappear and a swamp forms. The constant struggle the residents of this village faces for daily survival while tending to their children's needs has compounded their woes. Wild elephants have not made their lives any easier. Elephants encroaching on the village in search of food leave behind a trail of destruction. Who created this human-elephant conflict? Getting from one place to another in the Bamunange Ala village in Mahiyangane and its vicinity is in itself an arduous task. Children of the village say they cannot even walk to school on rainy days when bodies of water overflow. Their parents are unable to travel to work, depriving them of the pittance they earn to sustain their families. Our team in Mahiyangane did not forget to pay a visit to the indigenous leader of Sri Lanka, Uruwarge Vanilatto. He commended the efforts of Gammatha. Thereafter, our Gammatha team visited the village that was mentioned by Uruwarge Vanilatto to hear their plight. Gammatha Door-to-Door will continue to build on its success for the 17th day tomorrow, as our teams tour more villages across Sri Lanka, together with students of the University of Peradeniya.
Gammatha, made in Sri Lanka.
Newsfirst, with the people.
Pial Pereira from the Gypsies commented on the existing political system during the launch of a song today.
Ranjan very famously claimed that they are all friends. Sri Lanka is home to a group of sincere politicians that cannot be found anywhere in the world. In every country there is some politician who is corrupt, but that is not the case in Sri Lanka. We have the best politicians. People who we would never have associated with politics are being pitted to join politics. We cannot understand what is going on. All I can see is a well-planned game. The poor are always poor and will remain that way. Certain provinces don't even have water yet. That is the current state of this country.
He was speaking at the launch of a song produced by the Gypsies. Jean Nathaniel also contributed in the creation of the video of this song.
ICFM 2023, the International Conference of the Faculty of Music University of the Visual and Performing Arts took place in Colombo today.
International Conference of the Faculty of Music, University of the Visual and Performing Arts, which is an annual event, took place this year under the theme of symbiosis of arts and cultures, nurturing expression, connection and well-being at the University of Visual and Performing Arts. The conference theme encapsulates the dynamic interplay between arts, culture and holistic well-being in a world where cultures intersect and coexist. This theme resonates deeply, advocating for unity amid diversity. The symposium was attended by the Vice-Chancellor of the University of Visual and Performing Arts, Professor Dr. Rohan Netsinghe, Conference Chair Professor Dr. Saman Pannapitia and other dignitaries were present at the event. Various performances also added colour to this event.
The KIU Career Fair 2023 took place in Colombo today.
KIU is a leading non-state degree awarding higher educational institute. The Career Guidance Unit of KIU conducted this career fair in collaboration with the Faculty of Management.
The KIU Career Fair is more than just a gathering. It is a convergence of academia and industry. A platform where aspirations meet opportunities, and today we witness the merging of academic excellence with dynamic world of industry, setting the stage for collaboration, growth and success.
The event comprised of fresh graduates seeking entry-level employment opportunities as well as undergraduates actively searching for internship placement. Newsfirst also conducted screen tests at the KIU Career Fair.
Day 52 of the second leg of the LOLC Divisavya program took place in the Hambantota district.
The second leg of the LOLC Divisavya program will provide school books and stationery items to schools with less than 100 students. Students will be provided school books and stationery for a period of 1 year under the program. This worthy initiative is a collaboration between the LOLC group and the Ministry of Education. The LOLC Divisavya program took place in the Hambantota Education Zone in the Hambantota district. School books and stationery items were given to the students at the Rathanajyothi Primary School, Jinasarana Primary School, Kadamaditta Primary School, Galbadia Primary School, Shri Indraratana Primary School and Kuda Bibula Primary School. At the same time, the LOLC Divisavya program took place at the Hambantota Zonal Education Office. The LOLC Divisavya program will continue to create a bright future for the country's student population.
The press briefing of the Katu Speed Up 2023 was held at the National Olympic House yesterday.
The Katakurunda Circuit Meet is organised and conducted by the Sri Lanka Automobile Sports. This event will be held for its third consecutive year following the pandemic, which brought the activities of SLAS to a standstill. The Circuit Meet provides a platform for the member clubs and their riders to pursue their passion, entertain racing fans and to steer the next generation of riders to the right path. There are over 100 entries for the Circuit Meet and there are 16 events to be held. There are also 16 sponsors supporting this year's meet.
Cricket has brought a lot of fame in few countries around the world, but motorsport has brought more fame for our country around the world. And if you see in Sri Lanka, we have more spectators sometimes than cricket for motorsports because it's so much thrilling. It's a big industry more than sports, you know.
The circuit meet will be held on the 3rd of December at the Sri Lanka Air Force track in Katakurunda.
Despite the tumultuous times Sri Lanka cricket is enduring at present, the cricketing spirit of its citizens is still very much alive.
The annual cricket encounter of the Kandy Hoteliers Association was held at the Digana Sports Complex today. The encounter was held after 4 years due to the global pandemic.
And with that, we wrap up news for tonight. Thank you very much for joining us. Do take care and good night.